Hey everybody, this is Jim with Harvest Harmonics, and welcome to Friday's edition of Innovations in Agriculture. And it has been an insanely crazy couple of weeks here at Harvest Harmonics. In fact, even as I do this show, I'm getting call after call after call from people who are interested in this technology. Now, they say that necessity is the mother of invention, right? They say that when when you need to solve a problem, when you need to do something, when you need to change something, that's when you get creative. That's when you really look for solutions. That's when you think outside of the box. And of course, that's why a lot more people are paying attention to us here at Harvest Harmonics that would otherwise normally just kind of dismiss us as something that's outside of their sort of sphere of influence, outside of the traditional way of thinking, outside of that input, add more nitrogen, get more yield kind of paradigm that most agriculture is involved in. But the reality of the matter is that system, that way of thinking is leading us down a path, is leading farmers down a path where several negative things are occurring. Number one, the first thing that can be considered a negative thing is that you kind of become more and more dependent upon those chemicals. See, the chemicals that you're using, this is maybe the dirty little secret of agriculture and agrochemicals, is that most of the fertilizers and other agrochemicals, they require a salt or sodium based solution in order to have activation in the soil and the plants. So what they do is they actually have a component in them to add sodium or add these components to the soil, and that actually increases the electrical conductivity of the soil. Now, electrical conductivity, very simply, just is a measurement of how much, how much positively charged ions are in the soil, or how much charge the soil can carry. Now, if that EC or electrical conductivity gets too high, then what happens is microbes in the soil become more and more dormant. In other words, as the pH and as the electrical conductivity, especially from sodium, goes higher, then the microbial activity within that soil will go lower. And you need that microbial activity in order for the soil to continue to replenish itself. It's not just a matter of adding nitrogen or phosphorus or potassium to the soil that the plants are taking up. I mean, that's the traditional wisdom, right? It's a matter of the microbes in the soil actually provide a number of functions to really improve the overall soil health. They help with obviously nitrogen sequestration from the atmosphere, and converting that to forms that plants can use. There's also carbon sequestration out of the air, from carbon dioxide and carbon sequestration out of the air that gets stored in the soil. In fact, plants absorb a lot more CO2 than they just use through photosynthesis. They actually sequester a lot of that carbon down into the soils to help feed those positive beneficial microbes in the soil, because microbes need that for their own replication and stuff. But when you have high EC or high electrical conductivity, then you actually reduce those microbial activity, and that reduces carbon sequestration also. So for all those guys who are out there watching this, or doing, or banging the drum for environmental friendly practices, what we have to realize is the soil is our biggest caretaker, and it's the best way that we can sequester all that man-made carbon that we're dumping into the air. Okay, so the first negative consequence of sort of utilizing, or overutilizing, I should say, chemicals is the fact that you're actually reducing microbial activity in the soil, and those microbes do a number of functions for the soil and for the plants as well. It's not just a matter of one or two functions. They're actually improving the structure of soil. They're improving the ability of the plants to contact the nutrients they need, and the ability to retain water in the soil, and a number of other benefits. So if you don't want to use too much chemicals, it's going to drive the EC of your soil up. A second major problem that, of course, we're looking at in terms of the overall way of thinking of just add more chemicals, add more chemicals, add more chemicals. And just so you know, I'm not really on my soapbox against chemical companies. I mean, they have a product, they provided a solution that the farmers needed that solution. We increased our inputs for a long period of time. I'm not really out there to poo-poo those guys. I'm just saying that this model, this way of thinking, has kind of is reaching its endpoints, right? It's reaching the points where we can no longer keep doing it that same way and still get a good result. Um, Again, the second key area of overusing these chemicals is it's getting really expensive. I mean, that's why people are talking to us here at Harvest Harmonics right now. That's a big reason why people are paying attention to this broadcast. They're paying attention to our postcards and our brochures and other types of advertising because they're looking for solutions that are outside of this paradigm. They're outside of this narrow way of thinking that we've been in the last 6 or 7 years. I mean, it's fine that it's produced what we've been able to produce, but now it's time to start looking at how do we increase health of the plants, how do we increase the health of the food, how do we increase the quality and yield of the food, but how do we do so in a way that's not going to drive farmers broke? Okay. And the cost of fertilizer, for those of you guys who don't know, who've been in a bubble, I mean, any farmer watching this probably already knows this, that the cost of fertilizer, especially nitrogen-based fertilizer, has gone through the roof. Even stuff like potash and phosphates and other things are starting to go to the roof too. So, I mean, we're talking about 3, 4, 5 times more expensive than they were just a year ago. So when costs go way up, of course, now we have to look at it. Okay, am I going to be able to sell that product for 5 times more? Well, if farmers are selling their products for 3 and 4 and 5 times more than they were before, that means a lot of us are going to go hungry. A lot of us aren't going to have the opportunity to eat because we're just not going to be able to afford that much of a jump in food prices, right? And that's already becoming an issue, right? We're already looking at 20, 30, 40% inflation in terms of just the cost of food, right? So if farmers can't jack their prices up to match the increase in their input costs, they have to get more efficient. And of course, that's what we've been preaching on the show for really months now, but really the last couple of months specifically. When the going gets tough, you got to find creative solutions. And the Kimonosi plant booster is the most advanced, the most creative solution out there. Now, why is this? Why is this such a giant leap forward? Well, our product is a giant leap forward because we're not looking at it from that traditional narrow way of thinking of just add more stuff to the soil, add more to the soil, add more to the soil. We're looking at it like from the plant's point of view. Okay, how do we get that plant more efficient at utilizing the nitrogen, at utilizing the phosphorus, at utilizing the potassium and the calcium and all the other nutrients that plants need? How do we get that plant efficient so that it can generate as much energy as possible and become more resilient to these environmental factors that we're dealing with on a regular basis, and how we can actually improve the plant's ability to grow and produce fruits and vegetables with a minimum amount of input cost. And that's really where the Kimonosi plant booster fits because for the last 2 years since we launched our product, we've been really emphasizing the increases in yield that farmers are getting. And of course, we're just telling you what farmers are getting, not what we expect to get. But farmers are reporting they're getting 20%, 30%, 50%, 100%, 97% increases in yield. I mean, I have a presentation here with hundreds of examples of just crop after crop after crop where we're just improving the health and the export, the output, the yield, and that's of course what most farmers have been interested in. Now it's very interesting now that the input cost has gone up, farmers are less interested in yield. At least the ones that I'm talking to, they're less interested in that increases in yield, and they're more interested in reducing that input cost because now they're looking at I don't want to have to because the thought is in order to get higher yield, you have to increase your inputs, right? So now they're looking at how do we reduce our input cost. Kimonosi plant booster again makes that plant more efficient. So yes, you're going to get higher yield. But the interesting thing is, and this is what we've seen on university studies and other studies that we've tested this on, is that the less inputs you use, the less the actual greater gains you get from Kimonosi plant booster. So it's not like the whole system is going down. You're reducing your yield and you're reducing your cost. You're reducing your cost, but you're increasing yield because again, that increase in productivity, it really makes a huge effect on the plants. Now, the other side of it is the reason why we're able to get bigger differentials, more yield with less inputs, is not just because of greater efficiency, it's because you're not jacking up the EC of the soil. You're actually allowing those microbes to wake up and start doing their job again. And when you can improve microbial activity in the soil and reduce your overall fertilizer usage, that's where you start seeing that giant change where you're seeing higher yields with much less inputs. So the organic farmers and the farmers that are using less inputs, those guys are getting even bigger gains. Those are the guys who are getting 60, 70, 100, 130, 165% increases in yield. Whereas the guys who are continuing to spray, but just adding our technology, they're getting 20, 30, 40% increases in yield. So very interesting to see that you don't have to keep jacking up your inputs to see huge increases in yield. All you essentially need is a signaling system. This is an example of what we'd use for a small farm or trial or a greenhouse, Or of course, we have very large systems which would fit, a 6, 8 inch, 12-inch pipe for a whole field. So having said all that, guys, I want you to ask questions. If you guys have questions about how this works, what it is, some of the results we've seen, please ask your questions. Of course, you can go to our website for more of that information at harvestharmonics.com. But I want to show you, first of all, I'm going to put my email address because if you guys are interested in reducing your input cost and increasing your yields, then I want you to email me your name, your phone number, your email address, and some information about your farm. What are you growing? How much do you have? What are you looking to achieve on the farm? What are you looking to improve? Give me a little bit of information about your farm, and we're going to customize a solution for you that's going to make you more profitable. And of course, not just this year, where costs are super high, but we want to make you more profitable year over year over year. Because the efficiency of your farm is not just a matter of, hey, you're in a crisis now because fertilizer is 4 times higher than it ever was before. Let's solve this problem now. It's, yeah, let's solve the problem now, but let's put you in a better solution 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, where the soil is healthy, the crops are producing well, and you're getting a good return on investment. You have an efficient farm, and that's going to keep you going forward. Even when the crisis situation passes, you're still going to be a lot more profitable than you otherwise would be. So having said all of that, I just want to run through a few examples here of where we're saving farmers a lot of money on fertilizers. And again, just give you guys the opportunity to ask questions. I'm here for you. My job is to help you guys really understand not only this technology, but how you can be more profitable on your farm. So let me just share a few things with you here. This is, again, we're Harvest Harmonics, and the product is called the Kimonosi Plant Booster. Our mission is to help farmers grow healthier food with less impact on the environment and to, of course, put more money in their pocket. And we've been doing a great job of that the last couple of years. And now that more and more farmers are coming on board with this, we're really excited about the opportunity to really help millions and millions and millions of people eat healthier and put healthier food on their plate. So the technology, the way this technology works, and if you've been curious, so our technology is not an input. Okay, it's not nitrogen. Okay, it's not a spray. It's not something. It's not a phosphate. It's not a potassium. Again, we're not part of that narrow sort of modus operandi, that narrow way of thinking, right? What we're doing is looking at the plant itself and how do we increase and improve the efficiency of the plant itself. So we started by looking at the cellular structure of plants, and we noticed that when plants are healthy, the cells in that plant are operating at a very specific frequency pattern. And all those biological systems are operating at frequency patterns that allow it to align up. In other words, it's almost like if you imagine um, an electrical circuit, right? You have an electrical circuit where everything is going smoothly. There's no interruptions. That electrical current will flow, right? But if you start to have little gaps in there, little shorts in the line, then that electricity won't flow as well, right? It's the same thing. So if the cellular structures in the plant are aligned to each other and they have the exact same frequency pattern, then the entire structure will benefit. But when a plant is unhealthy, it's almost like the cylinders in an engine, if you will. If those cylinders aren't timed correctly, then that engine's not going to produce power, and you're not going to go very far. It works the same way in biological systems, and plants are no different. So again, we looked at hundreds of varieties of plants, and this is Mr. Balmelli here. We discovered that healthy plants have a very consistent, very organized metabolism. Unhealthy or stressed plants have very disorganized or distorted energy outputs. And when that happens, the plant is not generating the energy that it needs to do everything a plant has to do: to grow, to fend off insects and disease and funguses, to produce lots of flowering and fruits and vegetables, to have enough energy to put sugar into those fruits and vegetables so that the fruits and vegetables are high quality and continue to survive against all the other factors that it has to deal with. But when a plant is healthy, it has enough energy to do all of those things and more. It can produce a nice, high quality, high volume of fruits and vegetables, in addition to being healthy itself as a plant. So we take average or even unhealthy plants, and by using our signaling system, we're able to directly stimulate and improve the biological functions of plants. Now, the Kimonosi plant booster as a product is a very simply an irrigation device. Now we have small devices that can be used on greenhouses or sprayers or nurseries or those types of things. And we have larger devices here, like you see on the left, our CEO, Frank Garlia. that can handle big pumps up to 2,600 gallons per minute or even 15-inch pipes and anything in between. So if you have a small farm, you have an acre, you have a couple acres, even half an acre, we can help you. If you have a medium-sized farm, you're 50 acres, 100 acres, 200 acres, we can help you. If you have a large farm, you have tens of thousands of acres, we can help you. We have systems that can go on each one of your pivots or irrigation systems, and we can help you. And if you're a large farmer that's not irrigating, we have spraying devices that you can stick on your sprayer. And instead of putting those expensive chemicals in your sprayer, you can put plain water with our signaling system and get the same results. Now, our system really improves two key areas of plant health. Okay, the first thing is to improve photosynthesis efficiency. We're making that whole energy production in the plant super efficient so the plants can do what they need to do with a minimal amount of resources available. And the second key thing, as I mentioned earlier, is improving soil health, improving microbial activity, improving water retention, and improving um, uh, electrical conductivity in the soil as well. With better soil photosynthesis, we see faster growth, we see more production, we see better quality. Okay, I can run through a number of examples of that, but I just wanted to mention, President Biden back in March said that there's going to be very real food shortages this year, and we all need to kind of figure that out and deal with that. Now, here in America, we haven't heard of food shortages since the Great Depression. So now to hear a president talk about that now in 2022 is pretty alarming, pretty disturbing. And the reason he said that is because with the war in Ukraine and Russia, it's actually going to be reducing the fertilizer. A lot of fertilizer normally comes out of Russia. When you reduce and have sanctions against Russia, now that's going to impact fertilizer usage. So there's another reason, independent of the fact that the cost of fertilizer has tripled, there's another reason for you to want to get more efficient with your fertilizer use because there may not be enough of it around. There may not be enough for farmers to continue to grow. So instead of just kind of grinning and bear it and saying, "Well, I'm not going to produce much of a crop this year," use the Kimonosi plant booster, get the same yield, but use less fertilizer. And that's going to, of course, allow for a bigger supply. That should help drop the price for future years, and that will help resolve the situation much faster. If we continue to use as much fertilizer and nitrogen and chemicals that we've always used, then of course this problem is going to take longer to resolve, right? Just like the gas, the fuel industry, right? If people keep driving and keep using lots of fuel when there's a crisis, then the cost is going to continue to go up and it's going to stay high for a longer period of time. When people can get more efficient at what they use, then that cost will drop. So same thing with fertilizer, and I think we can all agree that if you don't have to put the money into fertilizers, you don't have to spend as much. Why would you want to? It's not helping your bottom line unless you just love your fertilizer buddy who sells you the fertilizer and hey, we like those guys too. We want some of those guys to come work for us. But at the end of the day, it's not really helping you or your bottom line. So we've seen a number of examples of reduction of fertilizer use. I want to give you a few examples. This first one was the university study we just completed, and this is going to peer review, where we reduced the fertilizer to zero. They didn't actually fertilize the treated field here, but they did fertilize the other field. Even without fertilizer, the treated field still doubled the production of the control field, and we used less water, half as much water, and we got a 500% increase in biomass for forage. Huge differences there. India, again, didn't fertilize the lentils here, still got 33% more lentils without fertilizer. This grape farmer increased his Brix rating to 25 on his table grapes without fertilizing his vines. This plum farmer reduced his fertilizer by 67% and got larger, more juicy, and sweeter plums than he's gotten. This flower grower reduced his fertilizer use by 50%, so reducing his fertilizer cost by 50% while still increasing his flower production. Here we got a 30% increase in production with less fertilizer. The cation ion exchange capacity is one of the big reasons why we're able to reduce the amount of fertilizer needed because we're improving the CEC in the soil. Again, going back to that microbial activity, which is helping to hold organic matter in the soil and improve CEC content. And that's going to, again, reduce your need for fertilizer going forward. Here's a few examples of 47% increase in CDC. Here's a 65% increase in CEC on tomatoes after a trial. And we're also seeing better water retention. So again, improving the soil structure, improving microbial activity in the soil definitely helps with water retention. This farmer used 65% less water than he has in previous years. And there's the moisture sensor readings that prove that. Here we have a walnut grower that's using 46% less water, with a 30% increase in yield. And when you look at the trees, there's gigantic differences in the health of the trees here. Here we have a 75% reduction of increase in yield with a 30% reduction in water use there as well. And reduces some pesticides too. Pesticides are getting more expensive also, and we can help with that. This greenhouse, first time in 17 years, he said he didn't spray his greenhouse with fungicide because the plants didn't need it, didn't have a problem with it. This tomato field, again, no fungicides, no pesticides used on the treated field. Here we have a pepper grower that extended their season and reduced their agrochemical, their pesticide use also. Soil health improvement, again, CEC ratings, microbial activity, water retention characteristics. This particular cherry grower got a 300% faster, 100% faster, excuse me, soil water infiltration rate, meaning the water getting to the root zone faster. And that reduces the amount of time you have to spend. If you're spending 7, 8, 10 hours just saturating your field, then you can actually cut that by quite a bit using Kimonosi because it's going to improve the soil structure so that it holds water more efficiently. And this slide is kind of what I wanted to end off with. Now, I saw this slide, of course, the data is back in 2014, but it comes from Our World and Data. They're a very reliable source of information and statistical data across a wide variety of different topics. And here we're looking at the nitrogen use efficiency in different regions in the world. Now, what is this and why does it matter? Well, nitrogen efficiency means for every unit of nitrogen you're using, how much are you getting? How much of that is being absorbed by the plants? And so when you see these darker blue countries, like a few countries here in Africa, the United States, and even Australia, you're seeing that the use efficiency, they're using about 60 to 80% of the nitrogen is going into the plants. So they're actually fairly efficient, right? These other areas that are lighter green and even almost yellow, they're only getting 20 to 40% use efficiency. Now, what does that mean in a practical sense? That means that for every ton of nitrogen that you're using, if you're only getting 60% efficiency, that means 40% of that nitrogen, 40% of that ton, or what would be 500 pounds of nitrogen, is not even getting into the plants. It's leaching out of the soil, it's evaporating back into the atmosphere as greenhouse gases, which of course contributes to global warming. But it's ultimately not going in your pocket. If the plants aren't using it, that means you're wasting it. And with the cost of nitrogen skyrocketing and tripling over the last year, nobody wants to be wasting nitrogen. So this is where we're getting our numbers where farmers are using 30%, 50%, 70% less nitrogen and less fertilizers because we're making those plants more efficient. We're making the use of that nitrogen more efficient. So imagine if we can just take across the board and just move everybody one level over. So if we can take these 0 to 20% and move them into the 20 to 40. If we take all the 20 to 40% efficiencies and move them into the 40 to 60, take all the 40 to 60 and move them into 60 to 80. If we can move everything and shift it by 20%, we'll be saving farmers, billions and billions and billions of dollars, and we'll be actually saving billions of pounds of greenhouse gases that are ruining our atmosphere, causing global warming, if that's an issue. And of course, it's taking money. It's actually not making the food any healthier because it's not being used for what it is. And here in Florida, where we're based out of, we have these things called red tides, where these algae get over fertilized because of all this excess nitrogen going into the waterways. The algae bloom and they kill the fish. It actually disrupts the wildlife and causes other problems. So there's a number of different environmental things that we don't always think of. And we're looking at the bottom line of our farming operations. Sometimes you don't think that these operations actually have other consequences. At the end of the day, guys, we're here to help farmers. We're here to help you guys make more money, produce a better quality product, stop wasting your money on unneeded fertilizers and other chemicals, and improve the efficiency of your operation. So we've been helping farmers do that since we launched, and we're going to continue to help farmers do that. And to help more and more farmers do that, we're offering a very special offer here in May. And that is for any farmer that wants to order 20 acres or more of the Kimonosi plant booster, or if you're non-irrigating and you want to use a couple of sprayers and outfit your sprayer with the Kimonosi plant booster, we're offering a 25% discount on any purchase over 20 acres or 10 hectares. And we want to help get you guys producing higher quality, more efficient, and less for less money. And that's what we can do with Kimonosi plant booster. So give us an email here at service@harvestharmonics.com. You can also give us a call at 727-324-6750. Let's not wait. Let's get you started. Let's get you operating as efficiently as possible right here, right now in 2022. And let's get you going moving forward so that you can become part of the future of farming today and take advantage of the biggest improvement in agricultural technology the world has ever seen. We're being called the Tesla of agriculture because we're doing to the agricultural industry what Elon Musk has done to the automotive industry. We're pushing it toward a giant leap forward that's going to make everybody's life better. Everybody that's growing it, everybody that's eating it, and everybody that's living on planet Earth. So if that's important to you, give me a call and let's work together today so that you can become part of the future of farming today. Have a great weekend. We'll see you again next week, guys.